Hey, friends, I'm addressing a very important topic today. It's an important topic for us as parents. Can we, as parents, without being aware of it, be hurting our children emotionally? And in this teaching, we're going to explore that question. So let's dive into our teaching today. And in our teaching today, we are going to be looking at the life of one of my favorite characters in the Bible, Joseph. I've taught about Joseph so many times. But I want us to use Joseph's life and his example to show us as parents that we could be wounding our children emotionally without us even being aware of it. Joseph is one of the important characters in the Old Testament. In the life of Joseph, we're going to see the impact of his parents on his life. Yes, Joseph won, but he lived a painful journey. Before we get into looking deep at the role Joseph's parents played in his life and how they impacted him emotionally, I want us just to roll back and remember that as people, we are three in one. That's what the Bible teaches us. Genesis 2 and 7. We are spirit, as the part of us that connects us to God, that we communicate with God. We are body, that's our physical flesh part of us, eyes, nose. That's the part of us that allows us to interact and live in this earth. But we are also soul. That's the inner immaterial part of us. The part of us that consists of our mind, the part of us that gives us the ability to think, to process thoughts, the part of us that consists of our feelings, the ability to process our feelings and feel angry, sad, happy, hungry, all this stuff. Our feelings is a part of our soul. Our soul also contains of our will. That's our ability to choose right, left. I choose right, wrong. It also consists of our imaginations and our affections. And in our soul, just how physically we could be impacted, we can also be impacted in our soul. And just how in our physical body, we can get wounded or hurt. In our soul, we can get wounded or hurt. And the unique thing about in our soul is that when we get wounded, oftentimes people don't see. People can see if we get a cut, if it's visible. And usually when we see the cut, feel the cut, we attend to it. We get a Band-Aid or we get stitches, we attend to the cut. But a lot of times, when we get cut in our soul, when we get wounded by people's actions, by destructive trauma, by rejection, unmet expectations, and we get those cuts in our soul, those wounds in our soul, sometimes we don't often address them. A lot of times we bury them, but we ignore them. We don't want to deal with it. But we know just like a cut, physical cut, if you ignore it, you bury it, it must be addressed. It's gonna get infected. It's gonna lead to even more issues. So as parents, one of the things that we want to do is, as good parents, we want to help our children address wounds. But also we don't want ourselves to be the cause of their wounds intentionally. We don't. But sometimes we can be. And sometimes even unaware, we can be the cause of wounds in our children. And so let's look at the story of Joseph and his life and his parents and see how they impacted him emotionally, how they created a home atmosphere that impacted him emotionally. And let's not just look at them to judge them. Let's look at them to learn from them. The principles that they teach us, let's take them away and then self-examination of ourselves. And then from that examination, learn, grow, and apply, level up our parenting, help ourselves, and then help our children. And that's what the point of this teaching is. Not for us to judge Joseph's parents, not for us to judge ourselves, but to take away the principles from God's word and use that to apply to our lives as parents, whether they're your biological children or not. You may be an aunt, an uncle. Let's take away those principles and let's use them to transform our lives. Transformation in us. That's what the point of this teaching is. Okay. So let's just dive into our text. The first principle I want us to look at that Joseph's parents, and first of all, understand is this. Joseph's parents were Jacob and Rachel. But it was that simple. I know that sounds simple, Jacob and Rachel. It was not that simple. I'll give you a little context. Okay. Jacob married Rachel, but he also married another woman. And you're like, what? You have to understand the context first of all. Okay. So Jacob went to live with his uncle Laban, and he went to Jacob. The story really starts, and you fully understand it, was Jacob was a twin, okay? He was a twin. His brother was Esau. And Jacob deceived his father to get something from his father that his father had intended to give to his brother. And of course, when his brother found out, his brother was very angry. And so Jacob was forced to leave his home because his brother was going to kill him. Those parents said to him, go to your uncle's house. Go there, settle. So Jacob goes away from home. He has to run and leave home. He goes to his uncle Laban's house. And there he is, the same Jacob who deceived his father is now deceived by his uncle into marrying his two daughters, Leah and Rachel. And so Jacob ends up with two wives, Leah, the oldest daughter, and Rachel, the youngest daughter. But Jacob really loved Rachel. Remember, they're Joseph's parents. So that's how Joseph's parents met. They actually met, but got married through a deceptive action. It's amazing, eh? So the first principle I want us to understand is this, that we as parents can warn our children through our actions. We can do things that impact the lives of our children even before they were born. So let's look at this. Genesis 27, 18 to 21. So Jacob took food to his father. My father, he said. Yes, my son, Isaac answered. Who are you, Esau or Jacob? Jacob replied, it's Esau, your firstborn son. I have done as you told me. Here is the wild game. Now sit up and eat it so that you can give me a blessing. Isaac said, how did you find it so quickly, my son? The Lord put it in my path, Jacob replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come closer so I can touch you and make sure that you really are Esau. Remember, Isaac is the dad. This is Joseph's grandfather. So Isaac is intended on blessing Esau. This is Joseph's uncle. So Jacob is now pretending to be his brother Esau. Let's continue to read. So then Isaac said to Jacob, come closer so I can touch you and make sure that you really are Esau. So Jacob came closer to his father and Isaac touched him. The voice is Jacob, but the hands are Esau, Isaac said. But he did not recognize Jacob because Jacob's hands felt hairy just like Esau. So Isaac prepared to bless Jacob. But are you really my son Esau, he asked. Yes, I am, Jacob replied. And this is Genesis 27, verses 18 to 24 in the New Living Translation. So here we see in our text started off with Jacob and his father. And I want you to picture this now. The scene is Jacob and his father all alone, but Jacob is pretending to be his brother Esau. His father Isaac has made an intention that he wanted to bless Esau. He wanted to pass along the generational blessing onto Esau. But Jacob and his mother did not want that. They had different plans. So Jacob and his mother put together a plan to deceive Isaac, the father. So here in our text, Jacob is pretending to be his brother Esau. And in that process, he gets his father to give to him, to pass on to him, the blessing, the generational blessing. And so this is Joseph's father. He's doing something that is wrong that happened even before Joseph was born. And you're going to see as we go through the teaching later, that this action that Jacob did had consequences for his family. So he did an act that impacted his children in the next generation. So as parents, our actions from the past can impact and wound our children even before they were born. So that's the first principle that we extract from this text, that we as parents can wound our children by our own actions, our mistakes, our deliberate, our bad decisions, our actions. We can wound our children emotionally even before they are born. That's the first principle we can extract from this text. So now let's look at the second principle. Jacob teaches us. Jacob is the parent. Remember, Jacob is the parent. He's the father of Joseph. The principle that he's teaching us, and remember, we're not judging here to judge Jacob. We're here to learn, and we're here to apply it to our life. How many of us as parents have done things that are wrong, made bad decisions, poor decisions, done negative stuff that has impacted our children? How many of us have done things that unknowingly, we did things, but we didn't know that it was going to impact our children? So, principle number 2, as parents, we can wound our children by creating dysfunctional homes with division, homes with competition, homes with self-centered parents. Let's go to our text and understand what the principles the Bible is teaching us about this. So let's go to Genesis chapter 29, verses 31 to 32. When the Lord saw Leah was unloved, he enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive. So Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me." When Rachel saw that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister. Here you see, remember in our first part, we saw Jacob had deceived his father. When his brother found out his brother wanted to kill him, so Jacob had to run away from home. He runs away from home. He goes to his uncle Laban's house. While at his uncle Laban's house, his uncle now deceived. Remember, Jacob deceived his father. He goes to his uncle's house, and his uncle deceives him into working for him for 14 years. And by the way, he actually worked even more time after that. For 14 years to marry his 2 daughters. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, but Laban tricked him and deceived him into marrying both Leah and Rachel. So he spent 14 years of his life working for one woman. And even more years after that to get flocks and herds from his uncle. So he's now married to Leah and he's married to Rachel. And Rachel would become later the mother of Joseph. And so here we see in our text a scene between Rachel and Jacob. Leah is the one who is unloved. He's the one that Jacob really didn't want her. He really wanted Rachel. But he got two. He got two of them. I remember in their culture, this was allowed. This was part of their culture. Remember the Bible, it can be prescriptive and descriptive. It's not telling us to have two wives. Okay? From this, we're extracting principles. And so in this, we see that in this home with two wives, Jacob and Leah and Rachel, there's competition because one woman, Leah, is having the children. The other one, Rachel, she's angry, she's frustrated, she's jealous because she can't have any children. And so she's acting out to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. So this is the home that they're creating. And in this home, children are being born. In this home, children are existing. How is their behavior, Jacob, Leah, and Rachel, how is their behavior impacting the children of that home? What is going to result from the behavior of these adults in this home? Let's continue. Genesis 30, verses 1 to 16. When Rachel saw she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister. She pleaded with Jacob, give me children or I will die. Then Jacob became furious with Rachel. Oh my God, he asked. He's the one who kept you from having children. Then Rachel told him, take my maid, Bilhah, and sleep with her. She will bear children for me, and through her I can have a family too. So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he slept with her. Bilhah became pregnant and presented him with a son. Rachel named him Dan, but she said, God has vindicated me. He has heard my request and given me a son. Then Bilhah became pregnant again and gave Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali, but she said, I've struggled hard with my sister and I'm winning. Meanwhile, Leah realized that she wasn't getting pregnant anymore. So she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And so Zilpah presented him with a son. Leah named him Gad, for she said, how fortunate I am. And then Zilpah gave Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher, for she said, what joy is mine that the other woman will celebrate with me. One day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes growing in a field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel begged Leah, please give me some of your son mandrakes. But Leah angrily replied, was it enough that you stole my husband? Now you can steal my son mandrakes too. Rachel answered, I will let Jacob sleep with you tonight if you give me some of your mandrakes. So that evening, as Jacob was coming home from the field, Leah went out to meet him. You must come and sleep with me tonight, she said. I paid for you with some of my mandrakes that my son found. So that night he slept with Leah. And I want you to see from this text that this is a home. You have two sisters competing over one man. How many situations in our life exist like that? Two women competing over one man for this one man's attention, this one man's love, this one man's affection. And in the meantime, children are involved in the process. Children are involved in the process. While they are so consumed with their personal agendas to beat the other woman, to make the other woman smaller than they are, to win over the other woman, to win this man, children are involved in the process. A situation with children consumed with division, consumed with competition, dysfunctional, self-centered agendas. All the while, children are in the process. And so you see that parents, as parents, we can be so consumed with our own personal agendas that we ignore the fact that children are involved. They're seeing what's going on. They're feeling what's going on. They're thinking about what's going on. It's impacting them. And we could, and I don't think Leah and Rachel were intentional. They were so focused on the fact that, hey, I'm in love, Leah, I'm in love. I want this man to love me. Rachel, he belongs to me. So I should be the one getting all the children. I should be the one who should be above my sister. So their focus was so much on what was going on inside of them, what they were dealing with. But all the while, children were involved in the process. They were producing children in that home. And we're going to see later on down what came of that home, the infighting, the division, the competition in this home. So as parents, we have to be careful. So sometimes that we're not just focusing so much on our own personal agendas, that we ignore the fact that children are there. And I could say that from my experience, in the past, I've made that mistake. So sometimes we're so focused on life and what we need to accomplish, what we need to get, and the bills we need to pay, and we got to do this, we got to do that, and we ignore the fact that children are there. They need our attention. They need our focus. They need us to create healthy environments for them to thrive emotionally, for them to thrive in their soul. And we see Jacob, Leah, and Rachel created a very dysfunctional home. And remember, we're not here to judge them. We're here to learn from them. And we're here to extract the biblical principle that God has given. God put this story in the Bible for a reason, not for us to sit back and judge, but for us to understand that we as parents, we could wound our children unintentionally by our own self-focused agendas, by creating dysfunctional home environments. We could wound our children emotionally without us even being aware of it. So let's look at the third principle in our teaching. So as parents, we can wound our children by repeating generational patterns, negative generational patterns, generational curses, generational sins, generational wrongs from our parents, from our own parents. So instead of us breaking those things, we repeat them and we permit them to go to the next generation. And let's look at our texts. Genesis 25, 27, 28. So as the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outstormer. But Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home. Isaac loved Jacob because he enjoyed eating the wild game. Esau brought home, but Rebekah loved Jacob. In this home was extreme favoritism. Isaac loved Esau. So what does that mean about Jacob? Remember, he had two sons, Esau and Jacob. If you love one, what does that mean about your relationship with the other one? Rebekah had two sons, Esau and Jacob. She loved Jacob. What does that mean about our relationship with Esau? Extreme favoritism in this generation. So Jacob grew up in a home where he was his favorite his mother, but not the favorite his daddy. Extreme favoritism he experienced as a child. Let's look at the next text. Genesis 33, 1-2. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his two servant wives. Remember, he got tricked into marrying Leah and Rachel. And in the process, when Leah and Rachel competing, they brought in these two other women, their servants. So now Jacob has 4 wives and children by all 4 of these women. He puts the servant wives and their children at the front. Look how he organizes his family. He put Leah and her children next, and then he put Rachel and Joseph last. That's Genesis 33, 1-2. So, in our text, recall from context, Jacob had to leave home because his brother Esau was after him to kill him, because he took something that his daddy intended to give Esau. Jacob deceived his daddy to get. And when he left home, the last time he saw his brother wanted to kill him. Jacob is now with his family on his way back home. And he hears the news that Esau is coming towards you with 400 men. The last time I hear from Esau, Esau won't kill me. Now he coming towards me with 400 men. So Jacob is obviously afraid. So he's now going to meet his brother's coming to meet him. He's going towards meeting his brother. And so he organizes his family in a way that is going to meet Esau with these 400 men, a dangerous situation that he's thinking. Look how he organizes his family. So who is going to meet the danger first? He put the servant wives and their children in the front. He put Leah and her children in the middle, and then he put Rachel and Joseph in the back. His favorite wife and his favorite child, the last. So when the attack comes, you're going to be the last one. So what do you think that tell the other wives, and what message did that send to the children? So the same favoritism that Jacob experienced as a child, he's passing on that same pattern, that same generational wrong. In his home, he's doing the same thing as a parent. He has favorites. His favorite is Rachel, and his favorite is Joseph. As parents, the same things that our parents did that are wrong, we could be passing on the same thing doing the same thing in our homes, hurting our children. Let's look at another text. Genesis 37, verses 3 and 4. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his children. Remember, he had a lot of children. He had 4 wives. He loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph was born to him in his old age. Remember, Rachel took a long time to have a child. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for him, Joseph. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. So here is, years later, in this home, Jacob, 4 wives, the children. This home is produced by Jacob, the 4 wives, and these children. But Jacob, remember, he experienced as a child favoritism. He was not the favorite of his daddy. He was the favorite of his mommy. Is now doing the same thing, the same pattern. He's doing the same actions in his home. He's clearly showing to his wives and his sons that Joseph is my favorite. He makes for Joseph a beautiful coat that he doesn't make for the other sons. And as a result of this favoritism Jacob experienced as a child, and that now he's doing as a father, it causes emotional harm and wounds in the children. How do we know that? Because look at the response of the brothers. Hatred. The brothers hated Joseph because Joseph is treated as the favorite of their daddy. So Jacob has created an environment fueled by favoritism. This environment creates hatred between brothers. Hatred between brothers because daddy liked you more than he liked me. Wounds. So we could be wounding our children by repeating patterns that our parents did, that we didn't break. That instead of breaking, we're doing the same thing. And I've been guilty of that too. And so I want to challenge you as parents. Are you repeating negative, wrong patterns that your parents did? Are you doing the same thing? And in the process, wounding your children? Are you? And so that is my challenge. That is our teaching. And that is my challenge to you. Are you, without you even being aware of it, hurting your children emotionally by your actions, your wrong actions, from the past. Like Jacob, and he deceived his father. That impacted his children, that impacted his home. Are you wounding and hurting your children emotionally by repeating generational patterns, wrong patterns that your parents did? Are you wounding and hurting your children emotionally by creating a dysfunctional home with dysfunctional behaviors where everybody's about their agenda and what they need and what they want without regard for how it's impacting the other members of the home? Are you creating a dysfunctional home where you are hurting your children emotionally? So that is my challenge to you today. I want you, when we're not here to judge Jacob and Leah and Rachel and the brothers, we're here to look at ourselves. We're here to take the biblical principles and we're here to use those biblical principles like a mirror to look at ourselves and to learn from them, to take those principles and learn and ask ourselves, am I or have I in the past hurt my children emotionally by my actions, by creating a dysfunctional home, by passing along patterns, generational patterns that I should have break? I should have broke. It should have been broken in me. I should have stopped that. But I instead did the same thing my parents did that was wrong. And in the process hurt my children. And so I'm challenging you to examine yourself as a parent. And I'm doing that as a parent myself. And don't look back at in a position of judging yourself, but look back in a position of how do I change? How do I become a better parent? How do I heal from the wounds of the past? My wounds, because Jacob was wounded from his parents. And he and in the text we saw, his children were wounded. So how do I heal the wounds? How do I change as a parent so I stop hurting my children emotionally? How do I heal from the wounds of the past? It's a God work. It's a God work. And God has given his word to give us self-awareness as parents of how we could be wounded our children so that we can stop those behaviors. We can stop and we can ask God to help us to stop. We can ask God to help us to change. God, show me where I am wounding my children emotionally, where I'm passing along patterns that my parents did that were wrong. Show me how to break them. God, help me, God, where I've done actions in the past and I'm reaping the rewards, I'm reaping the consequences of my actions from the past. God, cancel some crops that I've planted. God, help me, God, with the consequences of my actions from the past. God, help me to clean up the dysfunction that's in my home. So that is my challenge to you. So thank you so much for joining me in this teaching today. And I want you to share the teaching. If this has impacted you in any way, please share the teaching. And write a comment below in the description below. Make a comment. And I have a free gift for you. If you want a free guide to this teaching on how you could be wounding your children, so you could identify these points where you could be wounding your children, and how Joseph was able. Let me give you this beautiful nugget, from this dysfunctional home, from the wounds that was created from this home. Joseph was able to survive. How? Because of God, because of his connection and his relationship to God. So your children can still thrive through God. So I want to give you that free guide look in the description below on how Joseph was able to thrive despite the wounds he experienced from his home. So see this description below for that free guide. Remember, Please, if this video impacted you in any way, please share, please make a comment, please subscribe. Thank you so, so much.